Alright guys, so it's been a little while since we've checked out any products from JLAB. Now, in the past we've seen that they've released a lot of different products, but they're usually just budget-friendly earbuds and headphones. And every now and then they'll release something that does stand out. The JLAB Epic Edition earbuds is honestly one of my favorites. They came out, I think, probably a year ago. But today we're going to be checking out something that JLAB just released, which is the JBuds Open. And by the name, you would think it's a pair of earbuds, but it's actually an open back pair of wireless headphones. And it was the look of these that immediately caught my attention. There's no denying that this is an open back pair of headphones, because from the outside, you mainly just see this open mesh grill that you can technically just see right through. But what also makes these stand out is it's also a pair that's using dual dynamic drivers. And I honestly think this is a pair that a lot of audiophiles would be interested in if they could just get past the fact that it says JLAB, which is normally just a budget wireless headphone or earbud company, or at least that's how a lot of people look at them. So let's go ahead and start with the look and the design of these. The build quality is actually pretty premium feeling. There's some nice padding on the headband and the ear pads. There's some nice flex to these, some nice swivel. They don't feel like they're gonna break, but they definitely feel like you have a lot of flexibility with them. Again, the standout look about these is gonna be that mesh grill, which actually you can take out. You can make it look like those weird looking headphones that came out again, I think about a year or two ago. So I personally just left the grill on these all the time. I don't think it really affected the sound either way. Now, as far as your controls, they do use a very simple 3-button system. It is physical buttons all on the right side. This allows you to play, pause, turn your volume up and down, and also skip your tracks forward and go backwards. And then on the inside, you can definitely see the driver. This is what's normally kind of covered up with like a foam insert. So this is completely open. And so from a sound standpoint, you can be aware of your surroundings when you're using these headphones. But JLAB is also using some different tech in here. They have what they call Lab Boost. And this is to give these some punch no matter what volume you're listening. And this is kind of important in an open back style headphone like this. You definitely want something that's going to enhance the low end, because most of the time you're not going to get, the same bass that you're going to get with normal headphones. But we'll talk about that once we get to the sound. And then they also have what they call Lab Focus tech in here, which is trying to really channel the sound into your ear canal or into your ears and not have them leak as much sound, which again is normally a characteristic of an open back pair of headphones. And surprisingly, these don't leak a lot of sound. I mean, you have to actually have these turned up quite a bit and have somebody fairly close to you for them to really hear what you're listening to. So even though it has the same sound characteristics of an open back, it doesn't have that same kind of drawback to use an open back headphones where it's bleeding as much sound. So they definitely did something here. I don't know how to explain the tech, but whatever they did definitely is working. Now, as far as some of the accessories that they've included, they've actually included a pretty cool looking pleather case that is also open. You just slide the headphones in and it has this little strap that, you strap over the top, which means, if you're somewhere where like at the beach, this isn't going to keep any dirt and sand or whatever from getting inside. But it is going to do a good job if you throw this like in a backpack and you want to keep these from getting crushed. Now also inside there is a little Velcro strap that is holding the USB-C cable that they've included. Now this cable is obviously what you would use to charge these, but you can also use the USB-C cable to listen to these in wired mode. So it's nice that you have the option to listen to these wired if you want to. Just plug straight into your phone, your laptop, tablet, whatever, and you're good to go. But speaking of the charging, battery life is kind of odd on these because on the packaging it says you can get up to 24 hours, but on Amazon it says that you can get 18 plus hours. And I did find that it's closer to that 18 to 20 hour range. So as far as battery life, this isn't going to be one of those that competes with the pairs that we've tested that have like 100 hours of battery life. But the 18 to 20 hours is definitely going to get you through a full day. And for the most part, in the average listening time for most people, it's going to get people through a week without having to actually charge these. But again, definitely not the best battery life that we've seen. Now, as far as some of the other tech, it does have multi-point connection, so you can connect to more than one device at a time. These also work with JLAB's app, which you would use to keep these updated. There are some different EQ settings, or you can just go in and customize the EQ settings the way that you want. But honestly, no matter what I did, I actually found that the way that these are EQ'd out of the box, which is like JLAB signature sound, is the best that I could get. I mean, when I went in kind of like manually tried to EQ these, it dropped in the low end. The volume was deeply affected. So whatever they did with the signature sound, I found was just kind of like the way to leave these in. But also within the app, they have a spatial audio mode that you can turn these into. I didn't really, again, I don't like spatial audio. I didn't find like it really affected this too much because it's already open, but it definitely adds a little bit of a reverb or echo to the sound to kind of give it that illusion that you're in a much more open area. But some other things within the app is it's already on audio mode or music mode by default, but you can switch it into movie mode, which I found kind of cut down latency a little bit, and it also enhanced dialogue. So it kind of pushed the mids slightly more forward. So if you're going to be watching movies or gaming, you might want to switch it into this mode. And then another interesting feature is it has like a safe hearing mode. So you can kind of adjust the decibels that you want these to limit, so that if, maybe, a kid or somebody, you don't want them turning it up and blasting it the whole time, you can limit them within the app just by using a little slider. Now, if you are going to use these for taking phone calls, I think they do a pretty decent job for the most part. They are using noise canceling microphones, and that's just to kind of block out some of your surroundings and then try to focus in on your voice. But you guys can be a judge by listening to a quick test here. So here is a quick mic test outdoors. It is definitely a windy day. I can hear the wind. I can hear chimes. I can also hear traffic off to the side. So this will give you a good idea of what it would sound like if you were to take a call in public. So now let's talk about the sound. Now, to be honest, I was extremely impressed with how clean and how clear these were. Now, I kind of expected this a little bit because of the design that it wasn't going to be focused as much on the low end, but the amount of detail they're able to kind of like pull out is very, very impressive. Now, whatever they're doing with the dual dynamic drivers, they're not overly large drivers because, again, it is a 35mm driver and a 12mm coaxial driver. So they're not the large drivers they're trying to cram into here. It kind of really shows that the focus here is not the bass. Even with the boost mode or whatever that they have, it does have a nice subtle punch to it. It is very quick. It does add like a slight warmth to the sound, but what you should expect with these, no matter what you do, no matter even, going through the different EQ settings, is one of the most detailed sounds that I've heard in any wireless headphone, and that in itself is pretty impressive. So what it's doing with like the scores to movies, soundtracks, different vocal driven genres, acoustic guitars, even just metal guitars, there's a nice natural tone to it. Again, I don't know if it's because they are adding a slight amount of warmth, but the amount of detail that you're hearing in vocalists and higher pitch things, so like the crash of the cymbals, it's just a very detailed headphone that I really wasn't expecting. I kind of expected these to try to overemphasize the bass as much as it could so that you could feel bass, that it was going to affect the mids and the treble, and maybe that was the choice of using the dual drivers. So maybe one could push the low end and then the other one could handle the mids and the treble a little bit better and not just have it like be this congested or muddy mess, which it isn't. Another thing that's very impressive about these, which really shouldn't be a surprise, is the soundstage and the sound imaging. This is a very open sounding headphone. It does an excellent job with details and being able to tell where everything's coming from. So for a $99 pair of headphones and something that is definitely unique, I think JLAB has something pretty special here. But again, I think the problem is going to be, who are these for? Because I honestly think that audiophiles would absolutely love to have these to walk around the house, have that open back sound, and honestly not really affect the people around you. But the JLAB branding is not a brand that's normally going to attract audiophiles, where JLAB is more for like the average consumer, the normal consumer, which I don't think is normally looking for an open back pair of headphones. But I found I was using them a lot more than I thought that I would, and I kept finding myself being very impressed with the sound. I definitely did not expect this sound in a $99 pair of wireless headphones. But guys, that wraps up my video on the brand new JLAB JBuds Open wireless headphones. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.